Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's 6:30 p.m., so you know what that means. It's time for another edition of Strategy Sessions, where we are really making sure that those businesses that are in our communities and those who are running businesses and are creating brands for themselves and for their own organizations are getting the tools that they need in order to be successful and to really flourish and thrive in this community. And so this show is brought to you in part by, or in totality, I should say, as a full-time
Mhm.
entrepreneur,
Come on.
by Strategic Public Relations Consulting, where we're supporting dreams, creating partnerships, and building brands through the use of internal and external communication support for businesses, nonprofits, and political entities. So I am Heather Singleton. I am the principal consultant of Strategic Public Relations Consulting. And I am so elated to have the wonderful Kiki Drayton joining us today. So for those of you who are unaware of Kiki and all of her brilliance, Kiki is a native of Charleston, South Carolina. She is a proud graduate of the University of South Carolina, go Gamecocks, where she has an extensive background in journalism. And so she has used that to create a platform for herself, not only as a social media influencer, but also as a co-anchor of a podcast. So Kiki joins us representing On the Rocks podcast tonight, and she's going to talk to us about maximizing the moment in podcasting. Now, as a lot of you may know, podcasts have kind of taken over in the last decade. We used to really like have these moments of like radio and these awesome radio shows, and not to take away from
Z93
those.
jams.
Z93 every morning, afternoon, and night in Charleston. But in this time where mediums are growing and maturing into different areas, we now find ourselves going to podcasts to find out information for our own entertainment, for news, for pop culture. So with that in mind, I want to welcome Kiki Drayton to our show.
Hi. I'm so
Also,
excited
you
to
guys,
be here.
listen, also, you guys,
Honored, beyond honored.
I
Go
need to put a
ahead. Put it.
disclaimer out here for the people. So usually I am quite professional on my show, but I feel like I should also let you guys know that Kiki happens to be one of my very best friends. So I'm excited to give her this platform so that she can talk to you guys a little bit about what it is that she does. So Kiki, tell us about On the Rocks podcast.
So On the Rocks with Ash and Kiki, the concept started years before we actually started the podcast. Our mutual friend Ashley, shout out to her.
Hey, Ash.
She and I were neighbors in our off-campus apartment at USC. So every Sunday, thank you, Andy Cohen, I would go to her place and watch Bravo. We would watch Real Housewives of Atlanta. And she and I would literally sit on her couch and just talk out loud. Like, girl, what is she wearing? Why did she do that? What is she saying? And her roommate, Kayla, shout out to Kayla, she would be on the sidelines just laughing at everything. Hi, Kayla, at everything we said. And around that time, Bravo had a show called The People's Couch. And I was like, we need to be on The People's Couch, where if you think about it now, back then the show is you watching people watch TV, which sounds so crazy and sounds so boring. Like, why would you watch two other people watch another show? But now that is like 80% of YouTube. So, of course, we never got on the show. We never auditioned, but we would still keep a growing report of pop culture and TV and Bravo reality shows. So in 2018, we had bounced around the idea of podcasts, that there were so very few podcasts out there a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, that we always had excuses. We were like, oh, I got a job. I got a man. I got to work. I got to do this. And then one day I saw this app called Anchor, because I thought a lot of work went into creating a podcast, which, don't get me wrong, there is. But I was like, Ash, there is an app where we can both be wherever we are in the world and we can record a podcast and create it. And I was like, we have no excuses now. This is a sign. So March 2018, I believe we had our first episode, and we recently hit 100 episodes last January. So.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So you guys really didn't have experience in podcasting. You just knew
None
that you
at
had things you
all.
wanted to talk about, right?
Right. There was so much going on with pop culture, with music, with Black Twitter trending and setting the culture because we are the culture. So we were like, we have so many opinions, and the basis of our podcast is literally you sitting down, having a drink with your girl, and just talking, just shooting it, And once we started the podcast, we were like, people actually want to listen to what we have to say. And we are both so funny in our own ways and serious when we need to be. And it's been a great hobby ever since then. And I love doing it.
Good, good. So one of the things I do want to ask you was how you were able to find tools and resources to get started. Like, what are some of the platforms out there or some of the things that people can use to get themselves a podcast?
The easiest one that I was able to find through my iPhone, through the App Store, was Anchor. It is a growing platform that it'll distribute your podcast to other platforms like Overcast and Google, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts, they have just now refined their entire system. So that was a huge incentive for me because all I had to do was record maybe 2% of light editing, and I was able to push it, just press a button, and Anchor does everything else for you.
Okay. Well, how often do you guys do y'all actually record the podcast?
Prior to quarantine and COVID-19, we had a schedule of, we were so over ambitious. We were like, we're going to do it every Sunday. We're going to record. Then it was every other Sunday. And then, within the past year with everything going on, we were just like, let's at least try to do it twice a month where we take turns hosting. So I will have a list of subjects on one episode and she'll have a list of subjects. But to counteract, how up and down our schedules have been with quarantine, we both try to do solo episodes where it's just us talking about a point of interest. Like I like to talk about books, TV, movies. Ashley recently moved to Atlanta, so she talked about that. As you know, she is a bartender with her own bartending business. So we talk about cocktails and stuff like that. And we also delve into deep issues. Like we both, I don't want to say suffer from, but we deal with anxiety, Black women in the 21st century. So we kind of have something for everybody where it's not just celebrity gossip. We delve into politics. You and I can talk about that all day.
Just tell me when y'all want me on the show.
So we have a little bit of something for everybody. So the main focus is we want you to feel comfortable, and we want you to find something that you like.
So do you guys have guests that do actually come on the show? And this is not a plug for me to be a guest. I mean, and now I could, but I'm just wondering, as we're talking about how to get a podcast started and how to really take hold of the moment, I want folks to have a really strong understanding of what they need in order to get started.
What you need to get started. I always say you have to have a passion about what you're talking about on your podcast. I know the mainstream theme for Corona is you're bored, start a podcast. Don't do that because you're not going to be passionate about it. Find something you're passionate about and speak about it. I can't stand when I listen to other podcasts and it feels like it's their job and they're clocking in for a 9 to 5.
Right.
And it's a chore or a labor. So I think when starting a podcast, your first step needs to be find something you're passionate about, because you could be passionate about Black authors or poetry. I found that there is a market for everybody. You could be passionate about horror stories or about your interpretation of the Bible. Someone out there is willing to listen to that. So start from the inside, start from your heart, and find something you're passionate about.
Okay. Well, that kind of leads us into the next thing that I wanted to ask you. So if there are people who are either looking to start podcasts or they're looking for ways to spruce up their podcast, what are 3 things that you want folks to kind of take hold of when they're planning out this process?
When you are planning out this process, my number one, I'm going to come back to make sure it's something you're passionate about.
Right.
Make sure it's something that even if you didn't have a podcast, you could talk about on demand like that. That's number one, because people are going to know when you're not interested. People are going to know when you're boring. And I'll be the first to tell you, girl, that was boring. The second thing we already touched on, you have to have a consistent schedule. Sit down and decide how much of yourself you want to devote to it. We live in a society right now where we have to monetize. We feel the need to monetize all of our hobbies. Unless you are on a major platform, unless you're Joe Budden or you are Kid Fury and Crystal on the Read, you're not going to make a ton of money podcasting. And that was one of the first things my aunt would always say. She's like, you need to find a sponsor. You need to. And I'm like, I just want to do it just to do it. I'm not hurting for the coins at the moment. And I enjoy doing that. So maintain that consistent schedule and you will have a consistent audience. So my third thing going into that is it will take time to build a stable audience. You and I were talking about views the other day. And when you're first starting off, you're not going to have 100 listeners right out there. You may not even have 20 listeners out the gate. You may have your mama, your aunts, and your nephew and his cousin and all that. They may be your loyal listeners, but I feel like social media helps you push it out to other people. And I think the success of our podcast is basically word of mouth. It's me sitting down and being on Instagram and being like, hey, do you guys know I have a podcast? Or Ashley being like, hey, me and my friend have a podcast, and her friend will tell a friend and her cousin, or, it's stuff. Word of mouth is like one of the earlier forms of media. You and I know that as J School graduates. Well, attendees.
I was going to say attendees.
You left me hanging. But yeah. So let me go back through that because I talked through that so fast. You have to be passionate about your subject. You are going to require a consistent schedule. And me and Ashley both are still working on that. 3 years in the game, and know that you are not going to see results immediately. It takes time. Yeah. And if you love what you do, none of that will even matter, to be honest with you.
That's awesome. That's a really great point. So with all of that you've said, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. So what are some of the podcasts that you listen to?
Oh gosh, I listened to Kid Fury and Crystal with the Read. We are heavily influenced by them. Like, they were one of the first Black podcasts I ever listened to. Just because of both their personalities are just so honest, and like I said, kinfolk, we're the culture, so it's nice to see us represented and us have the same thoughts. I listen to a lot of Bravo podcasts because I'm not able to catch these reality shows live. So there are a lot of different, especially with reality shows based here in Charleston, it's great to hear other people's perspective of Southerners and the way we speak. And you know how, let these shows tell Black people don't exist in Charleston. And I'm just like, no, we right here. And I was raised by my grandma. And my parents. So I like soap opera podcasts because I'm not able to watch soap operas every day. Yes, I am a lady. They'll have podcasts like, who is the greatest villain of all time? I'm like, Victor Newman. Yes. So Ash makes fun of me. She's like, girl, you're an old lady. But I love those podcasts because those people who run them, they're writers. They are creators. And one of them, who I've been listening to since almost a decade now, he had a TV show called Ambitions that he wrote. And he was just like me, raised by his grandparents and raised on watching soap operas. And he had a show that he wrote with Will Packer on the OWN network. So I'm just like, don't discount what these content creators are doing. They all have very different backgrounds. So yeah, soap operas, Black culture and gossip, and Bravo. Those are my 3 top of podcasts that I listen to.
See, one of my favorites, well, I say one. My favorite podcast.
The favorite.
The favorite. I am a huge Kev on Stage fan. And so I watch a lot of Here's the Thing. Like Kev on Stage and that chick Angel. Like, I just, I'm a part of the tribe. I'm part of the stage crew. Like I said, it's a market for everybody. For everybody. Like, who knew that there were so many folks who were of color, who were saved, and who just like to create content and talk about things that are important to that specific part of the culture. So
things that we all grew up with. that we all have in
Right.
common.
Right. And see, and those who know me know that I'm highly churchy. So
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while they'll break out into song. But I think, and this is from the outside looking in because I have a live stream show, whereas you have a podcast that you've developed. And,
Mm-hmm.
when you're thinking about Kid Fury and Crystal and all these other folks, you're thinking about like how they see themselves and how they're able to articulate that across their show, across their platform. I think that
Mm-hmm.
brand management plays a key role in this because
Mm-hmm.
if I am the type of person, let's say that strategy sessions decides that, hey, we're going to do a podcast instead of the live stream. If I'm a person who is heavily into business and marketing and advertising, then I'm not going to speak on things that are not my subject area. But what
Right.
I can do is have folks come on so that they can talk about it and I can view things from their perspective.
That passion.
It's the passion. It's the passion. So one of the things that is important to me is figuring out, because you said that you don't like, that's not your hustle. Like,
Mm-mm.
monetizing is not your thing. But I'm sure you've known of podcasters who monetize. So if folks are looking to actually get money from this, what are some of the things that you've seen happen as far as monetization is concerned?
A heavy social media presence. Instagram is where it's at. I can post a link to my podcast on Twitter. I've even stopped on Facebook because I don't utilize Facebook as much as you do. So I just feel, and it's a different age group. My mom will call it a vlog, and I'm like, no, it's not a vlog, it's a podcast. But there are some people, like Ashley's husband, for instance, his podcast group, they have a Facebook group, which I think has up to like 2,000 members. So where they have discussions as well as the podcast aside from that. So, and they may not see a lot of that turnover on Instagram. So just making sure that you are pushing your content out there, and you will start to see it flow, and you never know who's watching. I did an episode on a solo session on power because I'd watched book 2, which follows Tariq and Tasha. And I just did a wrap up. I posted it on Instagram, which I hardly use, the On the Rocks Instagram page. And the actor who plays Sax, he liked it. And I was like, oh, Sax, don't listen to this episode because I'm saying so many terrible things about you. But the fact that I had his eyes on it,
Right.
and I reposted it. Oh, I just lost my earring. I reposted it in the story. I never knew that he would even know where to find, a podcast with 2 Black women who just happen to be talking about power. Like the power of social media, use those hashtags.
Yeah.
Tag celebrities, tag the network. Like I was tagging stars. I was using the hashtag for the show. You never know who's watching. The biggest one that I've seen lately is the OWN show, Ready to Love, which I just thought I'd start reviewing. And our numbers have grown from random people who aren't even subscribed to our show, just listening to me review that show every week. So that's a whole other audience that I'm able to bring in and see if they listen to our other episodes. So yeah, social media. Yeah.
And people, I think, neglect the power that social media has. Of course, you hear like all these folks that say, oh, I need to take a break from social media. And, there are negative things that are happening and things of that nature. But then, it's almost like you kind of have to.
You have to
engage, because when you have podcasts, when you have live stream shows, it's the engagement that keeps people coming back. And when I think about the case study, now they've become a case study, but when I think about the case study of Here's the Thing, they have gone from the traditional podcast to also recording and editing their videos to be live streamed or to be put on YouTube.
A lot of them do them all at the same time. They're recording a video, they're podcasting, it's live, it's streaming, it's going to be uploaded to YouTube later for people to use as a point of reference. I salute the people that do that because I don't have time.
Listen,
I don't have the patience.
Ashley's in the comments and she's giving us all types of commentary here. Listen, if y'all don't know Ashley Taylor Lampion, honey. She is a hoot. So
The
Ashley's
Perfect
in the
Mix
comments.
LLC.
Yes, please make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe the Perfect Mix LLC. They not only have alcoholic cocktails, but they do mocktails as well. So make sure that you become a patron of their services. But
Yes.
one of the things that hey girl. Sorry, she said hey booze, y'all. I get so excited. Like
Hi,
this is
boo.
what happens when you have friends who are
With
in
your friends.
business. Like you have friends who are in business
Like,
and
hey,
they support
girl.
you. Like they pull
Mm-hmm.
up. Like shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Neat Hutto James, one of my other amazing clients with Perfect Pearls Incorporated. Shout out to Morgan Green for joining us tonight.
Yes, come through.
Folks are really showing us love tonight, and I'm so grateful. You're welcome, Ash. So one of the things that I do want to pivot and talk about a little bit is cross branding, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about how to dive deeper into a brand and try to figure out like how exactly you want to expand that brand, have you and Ashley thought about any things that you guys want to do to expand the brand of On the Rocks podcast?
We definitely did when we first started. We wanted to have guests. We wanted to have different perspectives. We wanted to delve into her cocktail side. I was at the time wanting to delve into like not really an influencer, but as a commentator for like TV shows and stuff. But throughout that, we found it to be a little bit more difficult. So we've kind of settled on if it's not broken, don't try to go back and fix it. There's a reason McDonald's has been around for as long. That Big Mac recipe
Okay.
is still the same. Okay, the McRib be coming back 20 times. If it's not broke, don't fix it, because I think if you are about that, definitely do your research. But there's an authenticity that kind of leaves your original product when you do that. And I kind of felt like when we were trying to do that, I may have censored the way I would usually speak, or I may not have looked forward to filming an episode. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. This started as so carefree and fun. And
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly say 80% of our podcast is us laughing at our own jokes. Or I'll get a text from one of my cousins like, Kiki, why did you say so-and-so? Like, I haven't stopped laughing. Like, what is wrong with y'all? So if it's not broken, don't fix it. Definitely, if that's what you want to do, like I said, a lot of people want to monetize their hobbies. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would sit down and I would get with strategic PR consulting.
As you should.
Similar in that field. And I'm a visual person. Set down your plan, because so many people, like on The Read, for instance, it's so amazing to see how far they've grown within the past decade. They started doing live shows, and I can imagine, I think their last biggest show was in Charlotte or Atlanta. With Corona, they can't do that. So I would say it's kind of a good thing, because now those people are going where they may not have listened to the podcast every week. Now they have gone back in droves, and the podcast is their biggest source, I would imagine, of revenue. So
well,
stay original, stay true. Stay true.
Original,
stay true to yourself.
Yes.
Keep your heart 3 stacks.
So one of the things that I want to say before we wrap up is authenticity matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being yourself matters in the podcast spacing. And I was y'all, very shamelessly, I will say my life has just been so crazy and so hectic that I have to go back and catch On the Rocks podcast after it debuts. And so one day I was like laying in bed and I was listening, and I immediately started responding back to Ashley and Kiki's dialogue. Like I'm having a conversation with my friends in real time.
That's what we want.
That's what's desired, like those authentic conversations, authentic relationships. And sometimes you just don't need something that's heavy. Like if you want like an NPR type, like if you want your news and all these other things. There's a
market for all of that. Politics, go ahead. Yep. Go ahead and stretch yourself out. I'm not going to do it, but y'all can go ahead and do that.
But I think that when you have that authenticity, like your viewership will follow. People
Mm-hmm.
want to hear things that matter to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I implore you guys, if you're looking to start a podcast, make sure that it's something that you want to do. Make sure it's something that you are passionate about, and it can overlap into your business. You heard that, the girls actually took the mixed drinks and like Ashley's bartending service, and they made it into girls having fun, hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
and enjoying themselves. So make sure that when you're doing this yourselves, that you find something that's of interest to you, or you're going to die out very quickly. And so we
Yeah.
just, we just hope and wish and pray that everybody kind of comes with that thought in mind. And you can start a podcast, again, like Kiki said, with anything. I have a lot of business owners who are in the comments right now who may want to start a podcast and may want to talk about things that are of interest to them. So if you're looking to do so, please make sure that you watch the replay of this, because there's a lot of great information that Kiki has just shared with us. So Kiki, with that in mind, how can the folks reach you?
They can reach me on Twitter at KDASHDIOR. We have an Instagram profile for the podcast. We've been kind of lax with updating it with everything that's going on, but you can find that at OTRPOD. So it's On the Rocks Pod. Ashley can be found at Ash, TAYLAMP Marie. That's just always how I pronounce it, because we say this at the end of every at the end of every episode. So you're like, why is she spelling it out? That's just, I'm used to doing that. But yeah, definitely reach out. One thing we have been looking for is listener feedback on Instagram. So if you find our On the Rocks Instagram page, talk to us, DM us, let us know your opinions, and we are here to listen. We accept all comments. It's all love at the end of the day.
Listen, at the end of the day, you have to have thick skin, especially if you're going out there.
And I said what I said, okay?
Awesome. Well, Kiki, I appreciate you so very much. When you have friends who are, as one of my clients says, business besties, it makes it easy to have conversations like this.
I know.
And it makes it easy to just laugh and chuckle. And you guys got to Kiki with Heather and Kiki for a little bit.
With Kiki.
see how we did that there? But you guys got an opportunity to just not only see our dynamic and dive into our personal relationship, but also to learn more about podcasting. And if you guys are interested, there are tons of resources on the web. And then also Kiki has given you her information. So
yes, hit me up on Twitter. I'm there. I'm always ready to talk to people who want to start it. Might even create a little business out of it.
Well, you know who to call.
I know who to call, to get that branding on track.
Yes, thank you. See how we slid that in there? Awesome. Well, Kiki, again, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you guys
for having me.
Listen, I will always, anytime you want to come back, next time, Ash, it's going to be the three of us. And we gonna show out. We're going to have a good time. Of course, again, I am churchy, so I almost said we're going to have a good time in the name of the Lord. But we will, because she's at the center.
The praise and the blessings, all of that. Yes. Ash Wednesday. Shout out.
Oh, yes. And it's Ash Wednesday.
It is Ash Wednesday, honey.
Isn't it good?
I couldn't mess up the beat, but it's there in spirit. Yes.
Well, guys, thank y'all so much for joining us tonight for another special edition of Strategy Sessions, where we are diving into the things that make your business matter. So join us next week, same time, same platforms, as we talk about strategic planning simply. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to strategically plan the efforts of your business, how to manage projects, and how to really evaluate the programs and the processes of your businesses. So again, thank y'all so much for joining us. We hope that you have a wonderful evening. And until next time, remember to be strategic in everything you do. Have a good night.